Hey, what's going on, everyone? Hope you're all doing good today. So, I wanted to talk about the brand new update that just dropped for Ark Survival Ascended, version 73.18. And man, there's a lot to unpack with this one. This isn't one of those huge, flashy updates that add new dinos or biomes or anything crazy, but it's definitely one of those quieter patches that actually matters more than it looks on paper. Because this one is all about stability, fixing those frustrating crashes, and helping the game run a bit smoother overall. And if you've been playing Ark for any amount of time, you already know that performance and stability updates can be the real game changers. Now, before we get into what actually changed, I just want to say this patch has been kind of confusing for some players because of how Ark's updates roll out. You might have noticed your game updated to 73.18, but your favorite server or the official ones might be showing a slightly different number. Some say 73.22. That's not a mistake or anything. Studio Wildcard often rolls out smaller server-only patches or hotfixes right after a client update. Basically, the version number you see on your game might not always match the number on the servers exactly, but as long as you're able to join and play, it's fine. It's just the way they push updates out across platforms like PC, Xbox, and PlayStation, sometimes a few hours or even a day apart. So, this particular update mainly focuses on improving performance and fixing those annoying crash issues that have been hitting players, especially those using mods. I think everyone who's been running modded servers or playing with a bunch of workshop content knows how random those crashes can be. You load in fine, everything seems good, then 10 minutes later, boom, your game just freezes and closes out. Or worse, you crash when loading a map. That's the kind of stuff this patch tries to fix, and it's not just talk either. Players have already started reporting fewer crashes, especially on servers with heavier mod usage. The developers mentioned that one of the biggest issues was related to log spam. Basically, the game was writing too many unnecessary messages to the log files, which was slowing things down and sometimes even causing crashes over time. That's now been trimmed down quite a bit, and that alone can help with both performance and stability, especially on dedicated servers. Now, if you're more of a single player or casual player, this update might not sound exciting, but trust me, it's still a solid improvement. The game feels just a bit snappier for a lot of people. Load times are a touch faster, and the micro stutters that happen when you move through dense areas or load structures seem slightly reduced. Obviously, Ark still has its optimization quirks. It always will. But you can feel that subtle difference when you move around your base or when your world first loads in. It's like that background work that you don't really see, but you feel it over time. One of the bigger things about this patch is how it indirectly affects mods. Because mods are such a huge part of Ark, even a small tweak to performance or file management can have ripple effects. That's why if you're running mods, it's super important to check if your mod creators have updated them after this patch. The update actually fixed a few crash points that were happening when the game tried to load certain mod assets. But at the same time, when developers patch those areas, it can break some older mods if they were doing something that depended on that bug or an older behavior. So if you suddenly notice one of your favorite mods isn't working properly after updating, it's not necessarily broken forever. The creator just needs to push an update that matches the new build. For server owners, this update's kind of a blessing and a headache at the same time. On one hand, the improved performance and reduced log spam mean your servers won't be as overloaded or spammed with unnecessary file writes. That's especially important for rented servers or ones running on shared hardware. But on the other hand, you do have to update carefully. If your server's still running an older build, your players might not be able to connect after updating their game clients. So before you hit that update button on Steam or your console, check your host panel or your community Discord to make sure the servers have been updated too. If you're the one hosting, make sure you back up your save files and configs before applying the patch. It's standard practice, but you'd be surprised how many people skip that step, update too quickly, and end up losing data. What's interesting about this update is that it kind of highlights the stage Ark Survival Ascended is in right now. The devs are clearly trying to stabilize the foundation of the game before adding too many big features. You can tell they're focusing on making sure things like performance, stability, and mod support are actually reliable before they start pushing more content-heavy updates again. That's probably a good thing, because the first few months of ASA were a bit rough. Performance was all over the place, crashes were frequent, and the server sync issues made it kind of frustrating for a lot of players who just wanted to chill and build or explore. Seeing updates like this means they're addressing those things step by step, which is the kind of progress that actually lasts. And even though the patch notes might seem short, basically just saying performance improvements, reduced log spam, and crash fixes, that simplicity is what's interesting. Usually, when devs use language like that, it means there's a ton of under the hood work happening that they can't really summarize without getting overly technical. Stuff like optimizing memory allocation, cleaning up how textures or assets are loaded, reducing CPU spikes from AI calculations. Those are the kinds of invisible improvements that help the game feel smoother without changing how it looks or plays. It's one of those you don't notice it until it's gone situations. You just play and realize your game hasn't crashed for a few hours and everything feels more consistent. If you're on console, especially PlayStation 5, this update is even more noticeable. There was a specific mention of fixing crashes that happened when playing with certain mods on consoles. Since console mod support has been expanding, those crashes were a big deal because they were limiting what people could actually use. Now with that fix, console players have a bit more breathing room to experiment with mods again without worrying about constant crashes. It's a step toward making the mod scene more stable across all platforms, which is something Wildcard's been promising since day one of Survival Ascended. Now, I've seen a few players mention that they still had issues right after the patch, things like maps not loading or saves not appearing. Most of those are usually related to file verification or cache problems after an update. If you run into that, the easiest fix is to verify your game files through Steam or whatever platform you're on. It basically checks if any of your files got corrupted during the update and replaces them automatically. And for consoles, you can usually just restart your system or reinstall the latest patch, and that clears up most of the weird glitches. Another quick fix that works for a lot of people is clearing your shader cache. Sometimes after an update, the game tries to reuse old shaders that don't match the new version, which causes stuttering or weird visual bugs. Deleting that cache and letting the game rebuild it can make a huge difference. I think the best part about this update is how it shows that the devs are listening. For weeks, people have been asking for better stability, fewer crashes, and improved server handling. Instead of dropping flashy new content, they focused on the core experience, and that's honestly the kind of patch the game needed. It's one thing to add new creatures or cosmetics, but if the base game doesn't run well, none of that really matters. So seeing a patch dedicated to just improving the foundation is actually a really good sign. For those of you running big community servers, this update's also going to make maintenance a little easier. Less log spam means smaller log files, faster loading times when restarting servers, and fewer chances of the system choking on unnecessary background tasks. It might sound small, but when you're managing multiple worlds or clusters, those seconds add up. Plus, crash fixes always help with uptime. Nobody likes getting kicked mid-raid because the server decided to crash. If you're a casual player, you might not notice these technical details, but over time, they'll make your experience smoother. Little things like your character loading in faster, structures rendering without hiccups, or fewer random disconnects, those are the kind of quality of life improvements that add up quietly in the background. You won't necessarily see them mentioned in flashy trailers, but they're what make the game more playable long term. Now, it's worth mentioning that this patch might be laying the groundwork for something bigger. Wildcard tends to release stability updates right before they roll out more major content patches. So this could be one of those cleanup updates that prepares the game for whatever's coming next, maybe new creatures, maps, or seasonal events. It's hard to say for sure, but based on their pattern, this kind of update usually means they're getting ready for a bigger drop. One small tip before wrapping this up: if you're on PC and you've updated to this version, give your system a restart after updating. It sounds simple, but it helps clear out old processes and cached memory that might conflict with the new patch.